What if losing your keys wasn't about the keys at all? Imagine this. You're late. You're rushing out the door. And suddenly, your keys are gone. Panic. Frustration. A sinking feeling in your chest. You check the same drawer 3 times. You accuse the universe. You accuse yourself. And then, something strange happens. You start thinking about your ex, or the job you quit, or that friend you haven't seen in years. But why does the loss of a simple object open the floodgates of emotional chaos? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What if that lost item is just a messenger? What if the pain of losing something isn't about the object, but about you? You're not just searching for your wallet. You're searching for a piece of identity that feels like it's slipping away. You're not just upset about your broken phone. You're upset about losing connection, control, or certainty. We live in a world that tells us to accumulate money, memories, relationships, proof that we exist. And yet, every time something disappears, something inside us breaks. But here's the truth most people never ask. Why does it hurt so much to lose things? Is it fear? Is it ego? Is it something deeper, something hidden within the unconscious mind? In this video, we're going to uncover the real reason behind that pain. And it's not what you think. We'll explore what Carl Jung believed about the psychology of loss, the shadow of attachment, and how every moment of losing is actually a doorway into something bigger. You might think this video is about lost objects, but what we're really talking about is you. Because once you understand the true nature of loss, you stop reacting with fear and start awakening with purpose. If you've ever felt broken over something small, confused about why losing things affects you so deeply, or desperate to regain your center, stay with me. The key you lost may not be in your drawer, but the key to understanding your soul? That's exactly what we're about to find. Let me ask you something that no one talks about. Why does it feel like the world is ending when we lose something small? A misplaced notebook, a lost ring, a deleted photo. The moment it's gone, something inside tightens. It's not just inconvenience, it's grief. A quiet, invisible grief that feels almost unreasonable, but real. Most people brush it off. It's just a thing. But the truth? We don't grieve objects. We grieve meaning. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He saw human beings as symbolic creatures. To Jung, every object we carry, wear, or touch is more than physical. It's connected to our psyche, our story, our shadow. And that's where things get interesting. You see, losing something in the external world often mirrors an inner shift, a transformation, sometimes painful, sometimes necessary, sometimes sacred. You might think you're angry because you can't find your journal, but what if you're really afraid of forgetting who you are? You might think you're sad about losing a gift, but what if your soul is grieving the person who gave it to you? Loss touches something ancient in us, something primal, something deeply human. And that's why today, we're not going to talk about organizing tips or mindfulness cliches. We're going to go straight to the root. We'll explore why your ego panics when it loses control, how small losses reflect major internal transitions, why the unconscious uses loss to push you toward growth, and how understanding this process can help you heal, detach, and even feel more free. By the end of this video, you might just see loss in a completely different light. Because what if every time you lose something, it's not the end, but the beginning? What if that wave of anxiety is not a sign of weakness, but a spiritual nudge? Carl Jung believed that all suffering has meaning, especially the kind we don't understand right away. And today, we're going to decode that meaning together. So breathe, relax. This isn't about fixing anything. It's about seeing loss for what it truly is, an invitation to awaken. When you lose something, your first instinct is often panic. But if you pause, just for a moment, you'll notice something strange. A flood of memories, a sudden shift in mood, thoughts that have nothing to do with the object itself. Why is it? Because to Jung, the unconscious is always speaking in symbols. And everything you interact with, your ring, your keys, your journal, is not just a physical item. It's a symbol woven into your personal myth. So when that thing disappears, it's not just a logistical problem. It's a rupture in the psyche. Let's say you lose a necklace your grandmother gave you. The object is gone, but your emotional world spirals. Because your unconscious linked that necklace to legacy, love, identity. Losing it feels like losing her all over again. Even mundane objects carry hidden meaning. Losing your wallet might symbolize fear of financial instability. Losing your phone might trigger anxiety about being disconnected, unseen, irrelevant. Losing a childhood toy? That might be your soul grieving a version of yourself long buried. The object, in Jungian terms, becomes a portal, a threshold. It opens access to unconscious material, memories, wounds, longings. The loss isn't random. It's often a signal, a call to go inward. Jung believed that when something disappears in our external world, it's often because a part of us, deep within, is shifting, shedding, evolving. Maybe you're letting go of an old identity, and that's why your favorite jacket vanishes. Maybe you're being nudged into solitude, and that's why your earbuds go missing. Maybe your unconscious is trying to show you what you've outgrown. So instead of immediately replacing what's lost, try asking, what does this object represent to me? What feeling is rising right now, and where have I felt it before? What is this loss trying to teach me? Because once you see loss as a message, not just a mistake, you begin to understand something powerful. You were never meant to hold on to everything. Some things disappear to make room for your becoming. And sometimes, that's the soul's way of speaking, through absence. Let's talk about the part of you that resists letting go, the ego. When you lose something, why does it feel so destabilizing? Why does your chest tighten, your thoughts spin, your emotions surge? On the surface, it seems irrational. But for the ego, it's not irrational at all. It's a threat. Carl Jung described the ego as the center of consciousness, your sense of I. It's the part of you that creates structure and order, that builds a narrative about who you are. And one of the ways it does that is through what you own, control, and keep close. So when you lose something, it's not just the object that's gone. It's a piece of your constructed identity. Think about it. Your phone isn't just a device. It's your memories, your conversations, your digital self. Your favorite jacket isn't just clothing. It's how you're seen. It's confidence. It's comfort. The ego doesn't differentiate between having and being. If you lose something you value, the ego panics, because it feels like you are disappearing. Even worse, loss reminds the ego of something it absolutely hates, that it is not in control. And this is where the anxiety comes in. Not just because something is gone, but because your illusion of certainty, of mastery over the external world, is breaking down. Jung believed this was necessary. He saw the ego as a necessary tool, but also a limited one. It wants to define you by possessions, status, and roles. But your true self? It lives far beyond all of that. And so sometimes, the unconscious allows loss to happen, not to punish the ego, but to soften it. To remind you, you are not what you own. You are not your routines. You are not in control. This sounds terrifying, but it can be liberating. Because once the ego releases its grip, a deeper identity begins to emerge. One not built on objects or outcomes, but on presence, essence, and awareness. Loss, then, becomes not a rupture, but an invitation. And in that space of surrender, something far more authentic can rise. In the Jungian view, there's no such thing as meaningless suffering. Every painful experience, especially the ones we don't understand right away, carries the seed of transformation. And loss? Loss is often the beginning of that journey. You see, we're taught to fear loss. But in many spiritual and psychological traditions, loss is the threshold of awakening. It's the moment when the life you thought you had begins to dissolve, making space for something deeper to emerge. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward wholeness, where the conscious and unconscious integrate. And this path almost always begins with some kind of rupture, a disruption, a removal of what was once safe or familiar. Losing something, then, becomes more than misfortune. It becomes initiation. Think of the myths we've heard for centuries. The hero loses their sword. The wanderer gets separated from their map. The seeker drops the lantern and is forced to walk in the dark. But in that darkness, something unexpected happens. They discover a new part of themselves. It's the same with us. You might lose a physical object, but what you truly lose is a layer of identity you no longer need. The unconscious orchestrates this not to cause chaos, but to realign you. Maybe you've outgrown the job, the relationship, the version of yourself that item represented. Maybe your soul knows something your mind doesn't yet understand. So the loss comes first. The meaning comes later. Jung believed that the psyche is always seeking balance, growth, and self-realization, even if it takes discomfort to get us there. That's why loss often marks a turning point. It forces reflection. It slows you down. It pulls you inward, away from noise and toward depth. You begin to ask better questions. Who am I without this? What matters when everything else falls away? What is trying to be born in me? And slowly your identity shifts, from one rooted in the external world to one anchored in your soul. That's initiation. And like every sacred journey, it begins not with addition, but with subtraction. There's a moment just after the loss, when the silence gets loud. It's not just about the missing object anymore. It's about what rises in its place, the wave of discomfort, the stories, the fear. And this is where Jung's concept of the shadow comes into focus. The shadow isn't evil. It's not a monster lurking beneath your bed. It's everything you've repressed, ignored, or denied within yourself. It's the unspoken sadness, the childhood wound, the anger you pretend not to feel. And sometimes, loss becomes the trigger that opens the door. Because when something disappears from the outside world, it exposes the parts of you that were hiding behind it. You lose a memento from someone you loved, and suddenly, the unresolved grief floods in. You misplace a tool that made you feel capable, and now the doubt returns. You break something valuable, and shame creeps in, whispering, "You're careless. You always ruin things." The pain of the loss isn't just about the object. It's about the unconscious stories attached to it. This is why some people spiral after a small event. The surface trigger pulls up layers, old emotions, forgotten traumas, unmet needs. And if you're not aware, you'll think you're overreacting. You'll try to move on quickly. But the shadow doesn't want speed. It wants presence. Jung taught that the shadow must be integrated, not avoided. Carries gifts, wisdom, truth, transformation, but only if we're willing to look at it. So when the pain feels out of proportion, ask, what else am I feeling beneath this? Where else have I felt this kind of emptiness? What belief about myself is being activated right now? You might discover that what you're really grieving isn't the item, but your younger self, your lost time, your unmet longing to feel safe, valued, or seen. And in that awareness, something shifts. The pain becomes a teacher, the loss becomes a mirror, and the shadow becomes less of a threat and more of a guide. Because the truth is, what hurts most isn't what's missing. It's what's been buried inside us, waiting to be acknowledged all along. Here's a radical thought. What if you never truly lose anything essential? When the object disappears, the ego screams. The shadow stirs. But beneath it all, something else awakens, the self. The deeper part of you that Carl Jung described as whole, timeless, and untouched by circumstance. Because even when your possessions vanish, even when identities collapse or familiar things fall away, there's a part of you that remains. Still present, watching. This is the paradox of loss. It breaks what is false so that what is real can finally breathe. Jung believed that the self isn't something you build. It's something you remember. And often, that remembering comes not through gain, but through letting go. So what if the broken phone, the lost journal, the missing heirloom were all just tools? What if their purpose was to bring you back to yourself? You see, when we lose something, we're often given something else in return. Not immediately, not in the same form, but over time, clarity arises. Strength emerges, and a new relationship with life begins. One that isn't based on ownership or certainty, but on flow, meaning, and trust. This is not passive acceptance. It's an active reclamation of who you are beneath the clutter. You stop clinging to what defined you. You stop needing proof of your worth in things. And you start tuning into a deeper wisdom, one that whispers, "You were never broken. You were just covered." The great irony is this: what you thought was the worst thing, losing something precious, can become the most liberating event of your life. Because in that space of emptiness, you find something untouched by time or circumstance. Your essence. So the next time something disappears, take a breath. Instead of rushing to fix it, pause. Ask yourself, what's trying to emerge through this? What am I being freed from? Who am I becoming now that this is gone? Because you are not what you lose. You are what remains. And sometimes, losing something isn't the end of your story. It's the first page of the chapter where you come home to yourself. So now, let's step back and look at the whole picture. You came here because something small, something seemingly insignificant, triggered something big inside you. Maybe you lost a pair of glasses, a letter, a file, or just a bit of control. But beneath that surface event, you found emotions you couldn't explain. This is the true power of loss. It strips away distractions. It bypasses the rational mind. It takes you straight into the inner terrain where identity, ego, shadow, and soul converge. Carl Jung didn't view life as random. He saw every experience, especially the painful ones, as invitations into greater consciousness. And loss? It's one of the most precise tools the unconscious uses to wake us up. You've seen how your ego attaches meaning to objects. You've seen how those meanings often come from wounds or unmet needs. You've explored how the shadow holds the emotions that loss reveals. And you've realized that beneath all this noise is a deeper self, silent, observing, whole. What we're really grieving when we lose something isn't the item itself. It's the story behind it, the role it played, the illusion it supported. But what if we didn't need those illusions anymore? What if loss wasn't here to break you, but to strip away what isn't truly you? Every lost object, every forgotten thing, every broken attachment is part of the individuation process. Your soul's quiet effort to free you from the false and call you into the real. And this is where meaning is found, not in what's taken away, but in what's revealed in the absence. You don't need to fear loss. You need to listen to it, because it will show you where you're still holding on. It will show you who you thought you were. And more importantly, it will show you who you are becoming. You are not your belongings. You are not your routines. You are not your past. You are the awareness behind it all. The one who watches. The one who transforms. So maybe the question isn't, why did I lose this? Maybe it's, what part of me is ready to be found? Loss is one of the most universal human experiences. We all go through it. We all feel the sting. Yet most of us never stop to ask why it hurts so much, or what it's really pointing to. Carl Jung didn't just study symbols or dreams. He studied the patterns of human suffering, the hidden meanings behind what we call coincidence, misfortune, or fate. And again, he found this truth. What you lose outside often mirrors what you're meant to reclaim inside. That small object you misplaced? It might have been shielding you from a deeper question. That wave of panic or sadness? It might be grief from years ago finally surfacing. That broken item? It might be the signal that something within you is ready to shift. Loss doesn't just empty your hands. It makes space for your soul to breathe. And if you're willing to sit with it, feel it, and listen closely, you might discover that what seemed like a setback was a sacred invitation. So, next time you feel that sharp sting of something slipping away, pause. Instead of rushing to fix or replace it, ask, what is this moment showing me? What wants to be seen, released, or remembered? What part of myself is emerging from this loss? This is how we move from suffering to meaning, from identity to essence, from ego to self. And if this resonated with you, if something deep within you stirred while watching this, then you're not alone. Leave a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you've lost that changed you forever? Was it a person? A place? A belief? I read every comment, and I truly believe your story can help someone else heal. And if you want to keep exploring topics like this, Jungian psychology, shadow work, emotional healing, and the deep truths no one teaches us, subscribe to this channel. Here, we don't just talk about surface self-help. We go into the roots, into the unconscious, into the parts of you that are ready to awaken. Because sometimes, what's lost is just the beginning of what's finally being found.